everybody, and welcome to Yaoi Reddit. My name is Laura. I'm one of the hosts of this podcast.
And my name is Meggie, and I am the other host of this podcast.
And we are two best friends who are reading young adult novels in our late 20s. That's it. That's the idea for the podcast. This is our 7th season. We're currently reading the Maze Runner series, and we are on the final book in the actual trilogy. Before we start venturing into their prequels that James Dashner, the author, wrote. This is the Kill Order episode. Oh, sorry, no, the Death Cure episode. I always mix those two fucking names up. The Kill Order is the first prequel. This is the Death Cure. I will argue Kill Order would make way more sense for this book title than Death Cure.
Yeah, I agree. It at some point the like names just kind of seem like two buzzwords strung together, which I'm pretty sure was in the last episode. But even like Fever Code, which I think is the 5th one, sounds a lot like Death Cure. But this is
yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, Maze Runner made sense. Scorch Trials made sense. Death Cure, I read the whole book, doesn't really make sense. There's no cure for the death, and only like a few people die, you know?
And I guess in 2023, James Dasher is back at it again because he just came out with Maze Cutter, which is a prequel to... No, I think it's a sequel to The Maze Runner, and I don't really get what it is.
We don't need it. Well, and I'm also thinking, like, I can't stop thinking about in Uglies when there's Cutters. So, like, in my head, it's like the Maze Runner crossover with Shay's Cutters from the Uglies trilogy.
I was kind of thinking this is going to be a very interesting year for that 2010s lit, since the new Hunger Games movie coming out, this Maze Cutter thing I just mentioned, and then also the Uglies on Netflix, which I think is supposed to be coming out, but I don't, it seems like it's been in production forever.
Yeah, that's the thing. Netflix also, I feel like, drops the ball and everything. So I'm like, is this ever actually going to come out?
I don't know. I guess we'll see.
I don't know. But you want to know what is going to come out? Our podcast. Because you're listening to it right now. So we recorded it and it came out.
And what it's going to be coming out about is, as we said, the 3rd book, where if we remember how the Scorch Trials kind of ended, it is Thomas waking up in this white padded cell. He's not around any of his friends. His friends have been convinced that he has the flare really bad. Yikes. So he's going to wake up in this padded cell all alone to kick off the 3rd book.
And he's gonna stay there for a little bit. He's gonna stay there for 26 days to be exact. They're feeding him, which is really nice. They're actually like feeding him like good things like meat, potatoes, all of that jazz. But he also notes that he smells really, really bad, which like fair.
He really is showered, and that's what he's most mad about right now.
Yeah, he does say, and I quote, that he's developing a thirst for revenge. So that's something.
Yeah. Hey, I would maybe be developing a thirst for water if I was.
I feel like they're giving him water, you know?
I guess so. I just feel like if you were in a padded cell, my anxiety would just dry up my mouth constantly, so I'd have to be drinking so much water. So, anyways, that's just me, not Thomas. After these 26 days in his cell, the door opens and in moseys in Ratman, which, if we remember from the 2nd book, was the guy in the white suit who told the Gladers that the Scorch Trials were going to be really hard. So he's kind of like higher up in Wicked.
Yeah, and the moment we've all been waiting for. Just kidding, nobody asked for it. We're going to name Ratman now, a whole book later. His real name is Jansen.
Did you put Jansen in your notes, or do you?
No, I kind of alternated between Ratman and Jansen because I was like, should I like kind of be doing the canon thing? And then I was like, well, this is weird because both Ratman and Jansen are technically canon. Yeah. So I interchanged a little bit. But Ratman's here with some news.
Yes, he sits down.
He says, Tyra mail.
He says, you got mail. It is Blue's Clues time. He sits down and says the reason they're doing this, which is Thomas, set this up himself when the creators were purged. Right. He brought in new creators. And the whole reason they're doing this is to analyze their brain patterns to create a blueprint for the cure.
Yeah, and we learned that the kill zone is a buzzword for their brain. And yeah, we get a lot of backstory here, and we learn that Thomas has the flare, but he's immune. A lot of the Gladers and members from Group B are immune. However, to have a control variable in there, they threw some just rando normies in there that are not immune to the flare, but also have gotten the flare because they put them in the Scorch. So
yes, they are there to be like controls in the experiment and
yeah,
also be put through
because
the trials.
that's how science works. Yeah.
Everything they're doing is to simulate that random named part of your brain called the kill zone. And that's where the flare takes hold the most. That's that infected part of their brain
Yeah.
produces more violent behavior. And Thomas is about to get violent if he doesn't get a goddamn shower. But Ratman
Yeah.
is like, let's get you all showered up. Come on, my little stinky boy.
Yeah, okay, but here's the thing, for how, like, much, like, they do some backstory for, like, this entire thing is for us to find the cure, it just doesn't make sense that, like, they're, like, not looking for, like, a vaccine, and they also think that, like, a cure will be figured out by studying brain patterns, like, versus, like, an actual, like, shot that they would give people. Because, like, this entire time they're explaining, like, "Oh, we need to test how you respond to these things, these variables that we're giving you, and that's gonna help us find the cure." But it's like, "But how?"
I know. Like so far, your medicine is so advanced, which we can tell. It
Yeah.
seems like the only thing you have to quote slow down the cure is like this drink that makes people drunk. So you're either
Yeah, it's
drunk
just
all the time
drugs.
and you can't function, or you just completely succumb to like how would you not know?
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, I feel like in an effort to, like, explain things, we're just being, like, given way more questions, when you actually, like, think about it. Because like, you could read it and be like, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense, they're trying to do a blueprint with the kill zone," but then you, like, think about it and you're like, wait a minute.
No.
None of this makes sense. Why are we using teenagers? Why did we have to go through a fucking desert? What does that solve?"
I feel like the response the government had to this was so 0 to 100, where it's like there's no steps in between. We can't pour our resources into maybe um, taking populations and making it more safe for them. By instead, we just have to immediately put all of our resources into finding a cure. It
Yeah.
may or may not happen, but
That would be like when people like started getting COVID. They were like, let's see how long it takes them to solve a Sudoku puzzle, and that way we can find a cure. Like that's not no.
yeah, I do not know, but.
Whatever. I digress.
So Ratman is taking him after his aforementioned shower to see his pals.
And now
So
he's
they're
all
gonna
squeaky
be-
clean.
he's all squeaky clean. He goes to the auditorium looking his best because he's
Sunday's
supposed
best.
to. He doesn't see Brenda and Jorge, but Minho's there. He greets him very warmly, because Minho's the best.
Yeah, and yeah, Groupie's there. He talks to Teresa, and he's still mad at Teresa for getting brainwashed by Wicked to hurting him in the last book, which I think is wildly unfair.
Yeah,
Um, but whatever. But we do learn from the Rat Man that surprise, since they're reaching like the final stages of their testing, they're gonna remove the swipe from everybody. Optional, it's emphasized, and they're
yeah,
gonna remove the swipe. Which deleted all their memories and give them their memories back because they're like, "Oh, Wicked's so nice! Look at what we're doing." But Thomas, Minho, and Newt are not having it. They're like, "We don't fucking want our memories back." Which also made me question, like, wouldn't you want to know? Like, wouldn't you want to know? Like,
yeah. A lot of them don't really care to have their memories back, but I feel like I would.
right?
Because I would
Wouldn't it be like
never
nice to
compare
know,
them.
like, oh, maybe if I get my memories back, I will one think differently about this whole situation and be like, okay, yeah, I get why I did this. Or two, like, oh, I'm gonna learn like these people are actually really fucking bad, and now I'm gonna know how to fucking destroy them because I also know this entire building in my
Yeah,
past life.
yeah. So they're truly pissed at Ratman about giving back some more memories of their parents or friends or loved ones they might
Yeah.
have, which he finds pretty inconvenient. He's not really getting why everyone's mad at him. And Teresa's not helping the situation. She's once again dropping Wicked is good. Ratman is like, you guys need your memories back for this next thing. But if you don't want to remember your family, your local super skate, whatever it is, that's fine
Your
with
high score on Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. If you want to forget all that.
yeah. You forget all of the bad things, like we release this like man-made flare into hey, that I get. But like there's some
Yeah.
good things. Like how many books you used to read, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe you were also like a really good baseball player. We'll never know
You'll
unless you
never
get
know.
your memories back.
So Newt, Minho, and Thomas are deciding they're going to stand up to Ratman. Most of the group does, in fact, want their memories back. Makes sense. So they start walking to the basement procedure room where the surgery is going to be taking place on these beds with these head contraption things that got tubes coming out of them. And they're, they're like, it's going to hurt a little bit. It's going to
Yeah,
hurt a little
they're like, okay, you're gonna be fine, but it's gonna hurt a little bit. But there are basically assigned a bunch of these gladers and groupiers to their own official swipe room, swipe reversal room, and they get to the final last room, and Brenda's there, which we were not expecting. And we just get a little truth bomb that Brenda was not a crank. She was pretending that whole time. She actually works for Wicked, and she doesn't have the flare, or she's like also immune. But she does give Thomas a hug and be like, "Hey, I'll explain later. Don't trust them though."
Yeah.
And she again just confirms, like, "I'm not a crank, but like I really do like you."
Ratman, throughout this whole thing, does a insane move, which is I'm gonna say who is and isn't immune to the flare.
Oh my god, yeah.
We learn Newt isn't immune, which really sucks. For him,
Yeah.
we hate that. That means that he is going to succumb to the flare, and uh, they are still Newt and Minho and Thomas now are the only ones who are like, we don't want our memories back. And I mean, Thomas, like Laura said, is fucking torn. Like, who do you believe? Brenda, who's saying only trust me and the Chancellor, or Teresa, who keeps insisting Wicked is good?
Yeah, but like also maybe Teresa's just brainwashed. She doesn't know any better. We don't know. But the guards, because they're like, okay, since you're not getting your swipe taken out, we're gonna lock you in a fucking room. And Thomas, Newt, and Minho are like panicking. They're like, why didn't we try to escape sooner? Let's make sure we vow to try to escape now. I also think because here Thomas also has like another little dream memory about like his mom giving him away. And it's like, I
Yeah.
also feel like it's easy for Thomas to be like, guys, I don't think we should get our memories back because he technically does have some of his memories. They're just like coming back to him. So like
Yeah.
he's not fully in the dark. So it also feels super biased for him to tell like him like, Newt, we don't need to do this. I've got the memories I need.
Yeah, sometimes it seems like Thomas has the best of both worlds. He has this dream about his mom, and it's, I mean, relatively a nice memory. He's just like
Yeah.
biking around the neighborhood. His dad did go crazy from the flare, which sucks. But then the memory turns into Wicked taking him, and it also says less than 1% of the population were immune. And so the reason they took Thomas and these other kids under 20 years old was because they are immune, and also Thomas is the smartest of them.
Yeah, what a little golden boy. But the next morning,
Seriously.
the next morning, Jansen comes in and he said, "Hey, I know we gave you guys the option. Just kidding. You guys have to get your memories back. So come with me." The boys try to escape, but they are extremely outnumbered. So this was a stupid idea on their part. And they get to their little swipe room, and that's when Brenda, who's in the swipe room, comes to their rescue and helps them steal a launcher from the guards so they can start trying to escape. And she also, this is where she says that her and Jorge are immune. And now they're taking this launcher and trying to make their way to a burg so they can get the F out of Wicked HQ.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive how Brenda maneuvered this. She was holding this thing to sedate Thomas because he was going to be the first one to get his memories back, and then pretends to trip and like jabs the shot into one of the guards' arms.
Yeah.
Good for her. So they get these little electricity grenade launchers to tase people for a little bit. They knock out some guards, and then they go to Ratman's office with Newt and Minho, and they knock out Ratman too. So things are turning up pretty good for them.
Yeah. During this is like a long action sequence of them just like going through these rooms of Wicked. They
Yeah.
do learn from one of Minho's hostages that there's 50 other guards on duty, which also seems very small. And this other guard won't tell them, but it says like they're like, yeah, they're not coming though because something else is occupying them right now. So we're like, what's going on?
And something
Um,
is definitely happening because the alarms are going off and the lights are going crazy.
Yeah, and also Minho's hostages uses that as a reason to escape. But they get to this weapon depot, which I picture is just like a stockroom of weapons. That's kind of how I pictured it. Seems right.
Yeah.
And they notice a bunch of weapons are missing now, and Brenda's like, "Well, that's not good. A bunch of cranks could have broken in." And it's like they're like, "Does that happen?" And she was like, "Yeah, it can."
I know. And then she's like, that's kind of why we have the grenade launchers. It's like, Wicked really doesn't want to kill people. You don't understand. We just want to sedate them. And it's like, I
Maybe
don't.
you should just kill the zombie cranks. Like, is that so bad?
Yeah, exactly. You might never find this cure.
Yeah.
Just take them out before they take you out. Personally, I
Exactly.
would.
Survival of the fucking fittest, bitch.
So Brenda and Thomas and Minho and Newt, they kind of make a little bit of separate plans where they're like, Newt and Minho, you guys gotta find our friends. Brenda and me, we're gonna maybe split to go try to find Jorge to fly the plane because they don't know where Jorge is.
Mm.
And on the way to the weapon place, the door is open, and they once again they don't know what they need the weapons for. Well,
Yeah.
it feels like they're already kind of being set up for a trial because Thomas can't trust anyone.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, I would have trust issues too at this point.
Yeah.
Newt ends up getting into a fight with Minho, which is where we start getting like the first inkling of like, okay, he's losing it a little bit.
Yeah, Newt
Um,
is Minho.
Yeah. And Thomas and Newt end up like talking, and Newt's like, yo, I'm aware I'm like losing it a little bit. And Brenda, Little Miss Know It All, is just like, oh, yeah, Newt's probably deteriorating faster than everybody because he's so overstimulated because we've put him through so much as a part of Wicked. So that's not good. And Newt, he's being not his normal self. He ends up just slinking off for a little bit, and then he comes back and hands Thomas a note. And he's like, open this, like you'll know when the right time is. Just don't open it right now, but you have to trust me. So
Yes.
ugh.
Newt and Minho don't find their friends or Ratman or really anyone. No one is running into anyone when they stumble upon kind of like this mysterious room that's really dark. So they light it up with the grenade thing, and there's some security guards that are tied to the floor, and they're like, okay, let's move away from this one.
Yeah.
I love that they just like see this moment. They're like, okay, this was
They're like, okay, moving on.
you guys stay here. They go to the helicopter place, and one of the helicopters is missing. They find a knocked out Jorge, and they're like, Jorge, my man, what is up?
And he's like, oh, by the way, Teresa and the other group that got their memories back, they came through here a little bit ago. They stole a burg. And they're gone. So that's cool.
They also, I mean, in a moment of overkill, shot like 8 of those taser grenade things at Jorge, which, why? I feel like one would have done the job.
Honestly, if I got my memories taken away, had to watch a bunch of my friends die, I might just do a bunch of just extra shots to be safe. I feel like I would be at that moment too.
You're right. Okay, we're giving.
But okay, but here's the part of this scene that pisses me off because Thomas is now pissed off that Teresa and this group didn't come back for them. But it's like y'all didn't go back for Teresa and the other group either. Like,
I mean, I guess they did like a half-hearted search of the place, and then they
but
were
like,
like,
couldn't Teresa have done that too and been like, I don't know where they are?
yeah, I guess
Yeah.
that's fair. So Thomas is like upset about this. He's also trying to get Brenda to explain why she exactly doesn't trust Wicked, but she won't elaborate. Brenda does a lot of sus behavior throughout this.
Yeah.
So he doesn't take this as a red flag. He's like, okay, well, let's
He's
all
like,
get
I like how mysterious she is.
I like how mysterious, how withholding of information about my own life.
She's really making me work for it. I love it. I love since I already have trust issues that she's giving me more.
I know, like Teresa was pretty straight up with you. Brenda
Yeah.
pretty sus things and like know her way a little too well around the Wicked.
Yeah.
So they're getting on this helicopter when 20 guards come and start firing bullets. and grenades, but mostly bullets at
Yeah,
them.
but not like the bullets that'll kill you, like the bullets that will just stun you to the ground from the launchers. So we need to know that nobody can technically die during this battle sequence, which is honestly like it makes the stakes like a little bit lower because it's just like, oh, what I'll just get arrested again. Okay.
Yeah. So they take position and fire back at the guards as Brenda, Jorge, and Thomas run to the helicopter to get it started while Minho and Newt hold them off. Brenda gets hit while running, and Newt and Minho abandon the plan. They're like, whatever.
Hmm.
But she's got the electricity in her body died down a bit before. So she's just kind of laying on the ground.
Yeah, I pictured her seizing.
Yeah. They're trying to drag her to the helicopter. Jorge's using his fire gun to shoot fire because there's grenade guns and then there's fire guns.
Yeah, there's the grenade guns that just kind of make you a little sizzler. But you don't die. And then there's the fire guns, which I also imply that you don't die from.
Yeah, and then sometimes if you're trying to pull a prank in Wicked, they got the water guns and then they got the classic Nerf guns.
And they also have t-shirt guns and confetti guns as well.
I love the idea of you roll up to battle and it's just a t-shirt gun. You're like, oh, guys, well, that back.
And they're like, oh, was the confetti gun in the weapon depot and not the decorations depot? Dang it. George, did you do that? Did you put the confetti guns in the wrong place?
Man, if there was one that just sprayed that like goo stuff that you can get
Oh, like silly string?
Oh, that would be so much fun. The silly string gun.
Imagining somebody just silly stringing these guards that they're trying to escape from. That's so funny.
Oh my god, he's the class clown. That's his elect. So Brenda gets hit, as we know. They're trying to drag her on. Thomas also gets hit with an electricity grenade before getting on, which is not good news for him.
But they all make it out of the berg and they are sailing away. Thomas does pass out immediately, and when he wakes up, Brenda's like, "Hey, here's some more backstory and facts for you because I know you're probably fine after getting electrocuted."
Yeah, Thomas wakes up after being passed out for 10 hours, which that's just like 10 milligrams of melatonin for me.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I know how much my partner doesn't like it when I spring information on them the moment they wake up. And that's when they haven't been stunned with electricity. So I can only imagine that Thomas is like, I'm not in the mood for this right now.
Oh my god, I know. He hasn't even had his morning coffee yet.
No, I don't even know if they have coffee. But Teresa's like, okay, hey, just so you know, there's a bunch of safe cities and we're going to tell you about them now. And Teresa and her group, they went to Denver, which is a safe city. And also, by the way, Jorge and I met in Alaska.
Yeah, Brenda's also like, we can probably find jobs since we are immune. And
Yeah.
guys, get this. Oh, I don't know if Laura already said this, but the city they're fleeing to is Denver.
Yeah, they're going to go to Denver, which is the Mile High City.
The Mile High City. I've heard a lot of curses
safety.
about Denver. There's this one working theory about Denver that whenever couples move to Denver, they break up. And I saw a TikTok about it and a ton of like thousands of comments of people also breaking up. So I don't know what it is about the city, but apparently it's like very insidious for you just start hating everyone in your
Maybe
life.
it's the lack of oxygen.
Maybe. Let's pump some oxygen to Denver. That is our plan for the future.
Yeah. And make sure if you've moved to Denver and broken up with your loved one, let us know. We'd just love to hear about it.
Yeah, we can start a support line for you guys if you want.
Yeah, let's work group.
At gmail.com.
Yes.
So Thomas is like, whoa, why do they hate immunies? And she's like, I mean, come on, that's an obvious answer. Immunies also usually work on government or security jobs. This is another little tidbit that she brings up.
She does also bring up that there's a guy that can help get the control out of their brains. Conveniently, she knows a single person in Denver who can help them. And then she also gives Thomas a big old kiss.
Seems
Brenda's
like
laying it on thick right now, I'll say.
Brenda seems like a good connection to have on LinkedIn.
So true.
So Brenda is gonna take him to this guy. That's gonna be their first task after they unanimously decide to go to Denver. They get there, they park their unmarked helicopter, which I'm sorry, I don't know why. Well, okay, it does make sense the government would have unmarked helicopters, but like,
Well, it's Maggie, it's not like an actual helicopter. It's like a really big ship.
I don't know. I don't know how to describe the birds as.
I always picture them like kind of like blimps.
Okay, that's good.
I could be wrong. I don't know. I'm so sorry, Meg. I didn't mean to deter your imagination.
No, I just wrote down helicopter because I thought it would be easier for people listening to visualize it. Anyway.
But it's like a really big ship.
Yeah, it's a really big ship. It kind of seems more like the ship on Star Wars that's like cylinder. And then it lands places. But anyways, they land this ship. Newt decides he's gonna stay on the ship until they figure out what to do with him, because as we know, he does have the flare and it's not good.
Yeah, and he is losing his will to live. But Jorge has fake documents for them, so they go in, they get tested, they pass their little, you're fine exam, and then they end up like letting them into like the mall, which is the welcome area for Denver, which I think is hilarious. And this is weird because like not even a paragraph into this mall situation, because here I am being like, what the fuck? Why are we introducing the concept of malls existing now?
Yeah.
After we were just in a fucking desert in a fucking maze. Now we're at a fucking mall. Okay. But this man in a fucking suit comes up, knows exactly who they are, and says, I have a note for you guys. And it's from Galley. So like a lot is going down.
I think that's pretty common behavior in a mall. I mean, when people in their little kiosks would approach you and be like, do you want this hair straightener for $200? Makes sense. Someone would come with a letter from Galley.
I think this is a stretch, but okay, I'll go with it.
So they get this letter from Galley. Brenda tells the group that they used Galley to kill Chuck because they thought the pattern would be valuable. So Thomas is like, okay, I'll try to ease up on Galley, but not Teresa. Whatever.
Yeah, I know, because Thomas hates women apparently. And they take a cab to go to this address that Galley's instructed them. And then they find him there. It's a pretty easy for them to find Galley. I thought it was going to be kind of a whole cat and mouse thing of like, well, where could he be? He's on the run. He's not. He's just hiding. They find him, and Galley lets him in, and he's like, hey, y'all. The world is about to end, and I'm a part of an organization called the Right Arm. They're fighting Wicked, and if you guys help us, we can all win in the end.
Also, okay, I don't know if Thomas feels bad for Galley because Galley feels guilty for killing Chuck and then like went crazy after. But Galley does drop something which I think is very insane in this moment, which is that he only let Wicked control him because he thought he was going to kill Thomas. And then Thomas, I guess, is just like, whoa, you guys, we need to be on Galley's side now.
Yeah. It feels like Thomas is like a little too trusting of this person, especially after the fact that Teresa's apologized multiple times and he's still like, but you gave me a concussion because Wicked made you abduct me.
It really is so hating women. But Galley also says that the flare is in the city and they're hiding it because, you guessed it, government bigwigs keep getting it, and they're taking the bliss. But the virus keeps spreading, so not unfamiliar to society.
Yeah, and
protect the government bigwigs.
Yeah, and the other big issue is that not only are a bunch of people just infected and lying about it, but second issue is that immunes are just getting abducted and nobody knows where they're going, and nobody's talking about it either. So, two big uh-ohs on the prowl right now.
They're hypothesizing that maybe they're being sold to Wicked to continue the trials. And also Wicked kind of assumed that Thomas was going to come to Denver, and so now there's a huge bounty for Hans. They like want him dead. So yeah. It's iffy on whether Hans can help Thomas restore his memories by taking that thing out of his brain.
But they're gonna go try.
They're gonna go try. Galley's like, I'll be here for a week. Let's link up. Let's link. Let's connect.
Let's get coffee. So they go and they find Hans. And Hans starts his prep because weirdly he has all of the tools he needs to, remove this chip from his brain. But Wicked has started to get near enough to control Thomas again. So we have a little action sequence here of Thomas being possessed by Wicked and trying to stab everybody. And then they end up sedating him. And he has a dream about the purge, which is where they killed a bunch of people after the outbreak. But then he wakes up and Minho and him don't have any chips anymore. And Hans is leaving. Hans is like, I was happy to be here, but now they're out after me. So me and my wife, we're gonna zippity doo dah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a weird. It felt like almost like I have to to come up with a quick way to get rid of this chip. So we introduced a character and also got rid of him immediately.
They get coffee, as you do after any major surgery. And Brenda asks Minho and Jorge to step outside for a second so she can talk to Thomas. Ooh la la. And she's like, listen, the scorch did change me, but there are things you should know about me. And he's like, stop right there. And she's like, please. And he's like, I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
Brenda trauma dumps. Give Thomas.
Yeah, but here's the thing that it's like Thomas has just agreed that he needs to fight Wicked, which is this huge organization, and Thomas has gone, no person who used to work for Wicked, I don't want to learn anything about the past at any point in time from now on, which is like, she has all of the information you need. Why wouldn't you listen to her right now?
I know Thomas tries really hard not to help his chances as like the chosen one. It seems like often it's like people are like, okay, Thomas, no, we really need your help. And he's like, no. Everything I learn is against my name, against.
Yeah, no, Thomas is like, no. Let me get myself into another pickle so everybody can just have to change their entire circumstances to live with my consequences.
And that's exactly what he does here next. There's a guy shooting up Bliss in the corner of this coffee shop, and the red shirt guy comes in, and he's the police. And so he tests him for the flare, and instead of running out with the mob as they're like, oh my god, this guy's got the flare, who's shooting up Bliss? And Brenda's like, come with me. Thomas just stands there and watches. Doesn't help this situation at all.
No, that's the logic of when you see a car accident and you're on the road and then you start driving slowly so you can go watch the car accident, and it's like, nope, you're supposed to get out of the way right now, and he is not getting out of the way. And this doesn't work for him because the one rule that they were told when they landed is do not tell anybody you are immune. And Thomas immediately goes, it's okay, police. I'm immune, so I'm allowed to watch you arrest this man who's lying about being infected.
Listen, Thomas, what do we always say? Don't trust the police, because he's like, you're immune. Well, I got 4 guards here that are gonna seal up this guy in some weird body bag. And in the meantime, since you're immune and there's a huge bounty for immune people right now, why don't you just come with me and I got a gun?
Yeah. So he gets basically kidnapped in broad daylight because nobody's gonna fight the cops. And now he's gonna make this little tester some pretty coin because he's immune. And Minho, Jorge, and Brenda see that and they're like, hey, we can't help you. We're gonna run. So they do that. Good for them.
Good for them. Yeah, because Thomas is like, wait, no, my friend's out there. Thomas is doing every move wrong. So I escorts him to this car 3 blocks away. He's like, get in the car and put on the handcuffs that are in the middle console.
Which, honestly, if we know Thomas, he's gonna fuck this up again somehow. But luckily, the Rat Man ends up saving him. He flies down on I pictured it like a floating iPad, even though I know it's not, because he's video calling in, essentially. And they end up shooting this police guard tester person. And he's like, Thomas, I believe you'll enjoy that I've killed this person pursuing you. And I hope you'll consider taking the responsibility of being our final candidate for our final test.
And Thomas is like, I don't know why you think that I would go with you. And Ratman is like, I appreciate you bringing it up. I want you to know your friend Newt, he is spiraling very badly.
Yeah. And so Thomas is like, oh, that's not good. We need to go check on Newt. He ends up finding his friends immediately after the Rat Man leaves. And they're like, oh, that was close.
Yeah, and they are all on his side pretty fast. Jorge's like, we should leave now because the city's
Yeah.
been very weird. They walk to their motel, and they think that someone is following them the whole time, but nah, they're fine. They get there, they go to bed.
Yeah. But they do go back to the ship because they're like, we gotta check on Newt. He's gone. That's not good. Leaves a note, which was nice, but he's like, hey y'all, thanks for being my friend, but I'm gonna go be a crank now. And what's laughable here is both all Jorge, Brenda, and Thomas are. They're like, oh, that sucks that he's just gonna go be a crank now. And Minho has to stand up, being like, y'all, no, we're gonna go try to get our friend back. Like, we've been through too much. I'm not just gonna let you guys just like let him like go die with the cranks. So they're like, okay, fine, we'll go to get Newt from the Crank Palace, which
Yep.
is where it's called, where they go collect all the cranks.
They go to a quote unquote slum where they put the cranks until they're past the gone for the time being. And much like many dystopian books that we have covered, I don't know if it's just like when you start writing them inherently it's going to become political, but
Yeah.
the Crank Palace is just like a city that they put a lot of people who had little hope and little resources devoted to them, and crime has risen because of it.
Yeah.
You know? They get there in 20 minutes. They get there pretty fast. They
Yeah.
tell the guards a crank was out there on accident. They're like, we got to get them. They also call them cranks, which is a very deflammatory name. I don't know. It's like
I don't
it's.
know if anybody ever says the term crank is problematic in this book, because even the cranks say they're cranks.
I don't know if it's like problematic, but it is like an othering term. And
Yeah.
just in general, I don't think you can write like a dystopian book without shying away from it mirroring
True.
society.
True.
So they tell the guards, they're like, we will give you $1,000 if you bring us to Newt. And they find Newt pretty fast.
Yeah, he's in a bowling alley, which I was like not expecting there to be bowling alleys in little crank slumville.
Oh.
But they approach him and he's like, y'all get lost. I'm a crank now. And it doesn't go well. They really don't get Newt to come with him because Newt's kind of like, hey guys, like there's no cure for this. I'm just gonna kind of hold you all back. Like I don't want to be around you anymore. So it's very sad, but they're kind of like, okay, I guess we'll leave. And as they're leaving, they end up getting chased by cranks all the way back to their ship.
Yeah. They get chased by cranks. Newt is losing it. Newt is a
Yeah.
lost cause. Um, so they're running through the city. The two guards have been apprehended of their their little launchers too. So
Yeah.
luckily they get to the ship pretty fast, but it is a sad moment because when they're in the helicopter, they're flying away from their friend that they essentially just abandoned despite him.
Yeah. And Thomas is like, you know what? This is probably a good time to read that note that Newt left for me. And all the note is more of instructions telling Thomas to kill Newt before he can fully go like start losing it. So Thomas is like, oh shoot, I fucked up. I should have killed him. I was right there and I didn't. So
Yeah, Thomas is
ooh.
also like, I cannot figure out why Newt was so mad to see me and also me asking him to come with us. And now he knows.
Yeah.
When they land, there's a few guys in red shirts there to apprehend them with guns, and they throw them into a van to take them to a second location, which is never good.
Yeah, and so they get put in a room with other immunes. So this isn't good, and we find out that there's a state of emergency in the city of Denver because there's too many people with this illness now. But Aris is there, and so is Teresa. And then we learned that Fry Pan and other Gladers and Group Bers they were taken to Wicked to essentially restart the trial. So things are going poorly worldwide right now.
No, Teresa is trying to get Thomas to talk to her. They sit across from each other, and she's like, we didn't leave you guys behind at Wicked. You left us. The complex was talking about how Newt, Minho, and Thomas broke out, so they went to
Yeah.
speak to them, but they couldn't find them. And she also says she doesn't know he was the final candidate. So I got confused here, because if what she's saying was right, that they came back, why did Jorge say that Teresa hit him and then escaped? Like, something is
So
not adding up.
what I think happened is I think Wicked told their group that Thomas, Minho, and Newt escaped already when they were actually just like locked in that room by
Mm,
themselves. So that way they were like, well, we're going to break out. So they weren't even really looking for him because they were like under the impression that they had already escaped. So I think that both things are technically true. And I just think that Teresa's group was fed wrong information. But at least that's how I read it.
okay. I never knew if it got resolved, but that would make more sense to
Yeah.
just be implied. So Thomas goes back to his friends, and when the door opens, food comes, which we love.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, though, ignores the food, which you gotta respect the sex god. And he attacks the guy who is trying to feed them food, and then everyone's like scrambling for guns from the guards.
Yeah. Yeah, so they outnumber the guards and they're fighting them. Minho ends up shooting one in the foot because the guard doesn't know why that they're all gathering immunes because that's all they want. They're like why are we rounding us up? And the guard doesn't know, they were just instructed to. So Minho, our badass sex god, he shoots this guy in the foot and Thomas is immediately like, "Whoa, buddy, that was extreme." And Mino's like, I don't care. Like,
I
which
know,
I
because
think is hilarious.
it's like at this part, the guards seemingly have given them as much information as they can, which is just like, you
Yeah.
work for the right arm. And I'd be like, okay. But the one guy does slip. There's one guy in charge. You do not want to go to him. Like, you are much safer here because the path to getting to the guy in charge is littered with cranks. But Mino insists. He's like, no, no, no. We will be fine. You bring us there. And even more salt into the wound, Thomas is like, I think only Brenda and I should go.
Yeah. Mino, like, really orchestrated this entire overthrowing of the guards. And Thomas goes, no, Mino, you stay. I'm going to bring this girl I have a crush on with me.
I know. Somehow Mino agrees to stay behind and make sure their plans don't die. He's like, whatever. So Brenda and Thomas, they are going with this guy named Lawrence, and they're taking the van when suddenly someone jumps on top of the van. And it's a crank. Her
This is
face.
the fucking weirdest action sequence ever. Like they put like essentially like an action car chase in here, and that's exactly what this turns into.
Yeah.
So like Maggie was saying, there's a crank that's like on top of the car, and they have to like swerve it out of the way, and they're like, "That was a close one." But then they're like speeding through the city and then they get to a point where they have to drive with the lights off and there's no street lights, but Lawrence just like knows the way. But then things start feeling weird, so when they turn the lights back on they find that there's like a barrier of 30 cranks just like blocking the road, and then the cranks just slowly like move out of the way to let them through, and they're like, oh, that's actually really nice of the cranks to let us through. But then the cranks immediately start fucking attacking this van because of course they are. Why would you trust a group of cranks?
I do not know. So they gun it. They run two cranks into this wall. They back up. Cranks are flanking them everywhere. And they did something to the tires. It's not ever really told what they do, but
No.
whatever it is, they're stuck. They're fighting these cranks who are now breaking the glass. Brenda gives Thomas a gun to shoot them, and he shoots like four. Thomas's moral disengagement is getting higher and higher as the book moves on. So
Yeah.
Lawrence somehow fixed the tires. They're off. They run over a few cranks on the way, but you know what is one casualty in a sea of a war?
Yeah.
And they get into this garage. It does not feel like the farthest you had to drive. Like, I think my drive to Laura's house 20 minutes away in Chicago is farther than what it's.
Yeah, they didn't have to drive very far at all. So it was weird. A weird sequence. But they get into the little right arm office, which also wouldn't it make sense to, I don't know, put the office in the same building as like the room of hostages, so that way just everything's more contained, so you don't have to, go drive across a fucking 20-minute drive to
I
to
don't.
go see people that when there's cranks around. That seems so stupid.
They've got some right arm soldiers got their like guns trained on them, and they're like, we want to know why these people are here. They want
Yeah.
Brenda and Thomas to explain what they're up to there, and Thomas is like, well, we thought you guys weren't like wicked. So like, why are you locking up immunities? And they're like, oh yeah, you're that guy. Okay. We'll go take you to the boss. Got
Yeah.
it.
And then they introduce a guy named Vince, who's the boss. Like, we're not really given much about Vince's character other than that he's the leader of the right arm.
Yeah.
We do learn that he probably has the flare, and it's just like kind of not hitting him as hard yet. But Galley's also there hanging. They found him again.
Yeah, Galley's somehow like the second in command of this organization now. And their whole idea is they're going to use immunities to infiltrate Wicked, and they're going to get revenge because there's no cure, and we don't want to do it the Wicked way. The guy is like, there's only 100 people in Right Arm. Like, it's a pretty small, it's like a nonprofit. It's a
Yeah.
small organization. And Vince also is like, I probably have the flare because I'm not immune. Galley says, though, that they do have someone who can render the right arm's weapons useless. They can, or not the right arms, the Wicked's weapons useless. So they're going to disable Wicked's weapons and fight hand-to-hand combat in our little showdown hoedown.
Oh, the hoedown throwdown, like in Hannah Montana.
Oh, hoedown throwdown, that's what it is. So that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a hand-to-hand combat at the end of this book that we are anticipating.
Yeah. But they're since Thomas is with the right arm now, he's forgotten about his friends that are taken hostage. He's like, cool, I'll help you. Tell me what I need to do. And they're going to train Thomas on this little device that will disable Wicked's weapons. And they're going to essentially use Thomas's bait so he can get into Wicked, put this disable thing inside the headquarters. And then that's when the right arm's going to come infiltrate and start their hand-to-hand hoedown throwdown.
Yes. I do love, I will say, that we learn in the establishment of the right arm. I mean, yes, it is a revenge thing, but they were mostly mad at Wicked for letting the cities crumble while trying to pour all of their resources into figuring out the cure. When it's like,
Yeah.
you can pour your resources into other parts of like fortifying the city,
Yeah.
getting better social service programs, which I respect a lot. I'm like, exactly. That is completely right.
Yeah.
So, anyways, they have this whole plan, which is letting Thomas turn himself in, that Laura said. They're going to have him plant the device. They're going to fly and drop him off.
Yeah, they do that. They take him to a little burg. They fly him a few miles away. I believe they're in like North Carolina. Is that what they said? Modern day? Maybe I learned that in the next book. They're in like modern day North Carolina.
North Carolina is, I think, later. I don't know where they're going for
I think it's in the prequel that I started reading. So let's pretend I didn't say that. Anyway, they drop Thomas off.
Before they drop him off, though, Brenda has a moment where she kisses his cheek and says, I know they sent me into the Scorch to be your friend, but I actually became your friend. And it's like, once again, Brenda is saying suspicious shit.
I don't know. I feel like, yeah, I agree. I think Brenda is like trying to make Thomas believe her, but Thomas doesn't disbelieve her, so now she's just trying way too hard.
Yeah.
But anyway, they drop him off after Brenda says her little goodbye, and he does like a really nice hike through nature to get to the headquarters, and Ratman welcomes him when he arrives.
Oh, wait, but before he gets there...
Oh my god, how did I leave this out?
It's okay, so they're getting ready to go to the helicopter, and of course, to get there, they have to drive the car again. So they're driving the car again, and they're on the highway, and they see these 3 cars driving in circles. They're going crazy, and it's all
just like Mad Max Fury Road.
Exactly, I kind of viewed it as that.
Yeah, same.
So all of the cranks are on the highway, and within this group of cranks, Thomas spots Newt, and he's like, let me go talk to my friend. So the car that Lawrence is driving, he's like, fine, I'll pull off and I'll let you check on your friend. But Thomas grabs the gun from Lawrence before he goes to talk to Newt. So Thomas is like, are you okay? And Newt's like, it's like an itch in my brain that I can't turn off. And he's still upset about the note, as he should be.
Yeah, so
Thomas not killing him.
Newt starts like screaming at Thomas for like, I asked you to do one thing for me as my friend, and you couldn't even do that. You're the reason we're in all this mess. You're such a fuck up, etc., etc. I'm paraphrasing. But Thomas, in his stress of Newt yelling at him, he does shoot Newt.
He does, yeah. Newt has like wrestled him to the ground, and he shoots Newt, which is you know.
Meg, would you shoot me if I was gonna lose my mind and I asked you to in a note?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would do it sooner, honestly.
I would have done it sooner. I mean,
Good. That's the
I
right
would
answer.
would you shoot me?
Oh, yeah, like, yeah, and I would have done it way sooner, yeah.
I would, because it's like, I don't think that there's ever going to be a cure. If you
I
know what's
probably would I
happening,
probably would have closed my eyes while I shot you, but I would have shot you.
yeah, I would have shot you too, because I would have been really mad if you didn't do it to me. So if I was in that position, I would be like, I think Laura would also.
Yeah, I think Newt is really valid to be like, "Dude, what the fuck? Like, you should have done it."
So he shoots Newt. Newt is dead. They go to the helicopter. Thomas somehow sleeps after this, and then they get there. They drop him off. He treks across. He goes to headquarters. He finds Ratman. He's so excited to be back. He's like,
Yeah.
"Wow, Thomas, welcome back. We're so excited."
Yeah. And he's like, "Great, I'm so glad you're here. Let me explain what's going on." And Thomas is like, "Let me use the bathroom, dear Ratman." And Ratman's like, "But of course, dear sir. The bathroom is this way." So Thomas goes and hides this little tracker device in a cupboard in the bathroom. Without a hitch. Nobody tries to stop him or anything. So that works well. And then Ratman takes him into the room of doctors who are going to explain to Thomas what the final part of this test is.
Yep, and the final part of the test is they need his brain. Just straight up his brain tissue. They need a procedure that he's not gonna wake up from because the procedure is fatal.
Yeah. Which is like,
So
what?
Thomas is like, I need a minute. But also, how am I gonna survive until my friends come? He gets
Yeah.
he writes some notes to his friends. He's trying to delay this process as long as
Yeah,
possible.
he is textbook stalling right now. And for good reason, because they're literally like being like, "You're not gonna feel it. We're gonna sedate you. It's gonna be so nice and sweet, but like you're gonna die." So like they're trying to like soften the blow, but like there isn't a blow to soften here.
Ratman comes back. He's like, we gotta start. We gotta get going. And so he's following him. The friends land. The alarms are going off. Ratman is like, we gotta hurry. So they jab him with something to sedate him. They start running tests.
Yeah. How horrible to be like, "Great, I know we said it wasn't gonna hurt, but we're kind of gonna rush, so you might feel a lot of pain during this because if anything happens today, we are getting your brain regardless."
I would hate
Yikes.
that. There's explosions happening. It's all darkness as he's sedated, and he imagines a voice calling him, so he moves towards it.
Yeah.
We think he's dying, but he wakes up, and there's a manila folder with his name on it.
Yeah, instead of like a little "I love you" note, it's a little folder with instructions in it. And it's from Chancellor Page, and
Ooh.
there's a letter in there, and there's a map in there, and there's a plan for him in there, which is like great because this book needed to end somehow. And the Chancellor says, "Here's the map of where our captives are. Here's the map of where your friends are. Grab everybody and get them to the safety zone that I've pinpointed on this map. Don't thank me later. I think we have everything that we need from this test. We've caused too much destruction already. Go. Like that's the gist."
So there's two routes. He follows one to the maze, the eventual maze. The Wicked had hidden the immunes in the maze. So Thomas is like running through this tunnel, finds a ladder, throws the tunnel door open, is in the forest, and between like the forest and Wicked headquarters, there's like 4 buildings outside.
Yeah, this entire sequence is like kind of confusing because Ratman finds him again during this, which is just like, wait, you just left him. Why are you like approaching him again?
Ratman and Crony say they're gonna have to do it the hard way to get his brain. So Ratman pulls out a knife, and it's obvious at this point that Ratman has the flair a bit.
Yeah.
And he's like, I will finish this project. And, they have a scuffle. Thomas gets the knife, just throws it at the crony's neck. Like, Thomas at this point, he's like, if I gotta kill, I gotta kill.
Hey, page like 26, he said he had a thirst for revenge, and now he's finally acting on it.
So he kills the guy, and there's no time. He's got to keep moving. He starts running away from Rat Boy. He sees a group of people. He's like, I'm Thomas. I'm on your side. And
and the right arm's like, cool. We're just lining everything with explosives so we can take this place fully down. And Thomas is like, no, we have to rescue people. And they're like, there's always casualties in war. So this is when Thomas is like, oh, so the side I'm on is also like not great. However, in my opinion, he should kind of be like, let's get everyone and then explode everything. Cause it's like, we can always delay the explosions. Why are we so afraid to kill Wicked, you know?
Yeah, so he finds Vince and Gally, and he's like, this isn't a great idea. And Vince is like, you're either with us or against us. And Thomas asks Gally, like, well, are you with me? And Gally's like, sure, I'll come to the maze with you. I'll come find you.
Yeah.
So they
And
immediately run into Brenda, Minho, Jorge, Teresa, and Aris on their way.
yeah, and Thomas is like, hey, everybody, look at the letter I got from the Chancellor. And they're like, okay, we're up to speed and we agree with this plan. So they run to the maze and all of the hundreds of missing people are there, including our favorite fry pan. And the other missing gladers. And they're like, there's so many people here that we need to evacuate. Let's split people into groups. So they start doing that. They take way too long because this is when the explosions start and the walls of the maze are starting to fall. So they got to stop organizing. They got to start acting.
They gotta start. So they're running through this maze that essentially looks like the bathrooms of an office now. There's no sky, no nothing anymore. God, when the large portion of the wall fell to like start them off running and just crushed people with blood squirting out, I was just like, I gotta see this in the movie. I'm very curious.
Yeah, I really wonder where these movies go, TBH.
I know. So there's stone crumbling and rocks falling, people stumbling everywhere. Thomas gets ahead of everyone and is bringing them to safety. And finally, they reach the cliff where they've put two boards in place to get people safely across. And Sonia's like, Thomas, you gotta go down there. I'll sashay them over to you. Teresa's down there. And Thomas goes down and he's like, shoot, because the Griever pods are opening.
And Teresa's like, don't worry, Thomas. Since I got my memories back, I know that there's a convenient off switch underneath the Griever's blubber by its tail hole. So now Thomas has to go snatch this little switch on all of these Grievers as they're starting to wake up, which, like, no matter which way I imagined it, was really, really funny to me because it just kind of felt like he was like reaching up their butt a little bit. I think it was supposed to be more actiony than that, and it just wasn't. No matter how I envisioned it,
Yeah.
but he doesn't get to the last Griever in time. This one is fully awake.
No, Thomas doesn't manage to fist that guy's asshole. So this Griever is talking about roaming, killing people as like you wake up from a coma and you're like, what is the first thing I gotta do? I gotta kill people with my big glade axe hands. So the Griever stabs one guy in the chest, and Thomas finds a pipe, which I guess in the face of like 7 axes won't do much. But
yeah, but Teresa's like, screw you and your pipe, Thomas. I'm gonna do this. And so Teresa just like tackles the Griever, and the Griever just ends up like swallowing her whole. But Thomas ends up killing it and getting her free. This happens very, very quickly.
Yeah, the Griever is sucking her face off, which I mean,
yeah, the Griever was so mad it couldn't get a fist up its asshole. It had to settle for the next best thing by swallowing a woman whole.
So Thomas put his hand in that little hole.
Thomas said, let me get some whole action in here for you, buddy. he did the Lord's work and stuck his fist up that Griever's booty hole.
Oh, yes, he does. They somehow get about like 200 people out of the maze. And Brenda is like, time for me to shine. So she's going right. She's going left. She's like, we gotta climb up like 5 stairs. So they're climbing up the stairs with these 200 people. They make it to this maintenance room with a door at the end of it, which is supposed to be the flat trans to freedom.
Yeah. And so, but before they start just running here, which, like, in my opinion, they should just go. They're like, everybody, let's pause. One of us is gonna go test it out, and then we're really gonna consider. And it's like, time is ticking. Explosions are going off. They do find out that this flat trans does lead to just like a safety valley, like a pleasant world for them. So they start kind of ushering people through, but Ratman and more of his little cronies show up, and they're gonna stop them.
Oh, yeah, they are. So there's like, they assign like a person to fight one crony. And so they're like, go, go, go. You guys got to go through the flat trans. As the gladers pair off one more time, Thomas takes on Rat Boy. And they get in an even match, and it's like neck and neck until Thomas somehow gets him on his back, and it's just like squeezing the life out of his throat just till the death.
Yeah. Yeah, Thomas kills Ratman finally.
He's dead. He does like an overkill too.
Yeah, literally somebody has to stop him because Thomas is going to sicko mode on this guy's ass. But then they're like, okay, cool, they're all dead. Let's all go through the flat trans, but things aren't easy still. The walls are falling from these explosions.
Yeah.
Teresa ends up pushing Thomas out of the way of a falling wall and getting crushed in the process, like inches from safety. And they don't even really mourn it. They're just like, dang, yeah, Teresa did that.
I know. She's dying, and she's like, I only ever cared for, because she dies. I love a good Mad Lib. I love exiting a riddle.
Yeah, looking for a noun.
He has to keep going. So he reaches the door of the maintenance room to go through the flat trans with Minho and Brenda, and he comes out on the other side of paradise.
Yeah.
It's sunny, green. There's the ocean out here.
Yeah, Brenda turns the flat trans off so nobody else can come through. And then the barn that the flat trans is held in ends up burning to the ground because of the explosions. And then they're kind of like, yay, we did it. And then him and Brenda talk for a little bit about how this is a whole new beginning. And then that book really ends and we have a little epilogue.
Yeah, Brenda says a very sus, there's 200 immune here. That'll be a good start, which weird.
Yeah.
And on the epilogue, it ends with another email from our good Lord Ava Page saying they failed, but in ways they've succeeded. They finally got a lot of their community to a safe place. She also says releasing the flare as a means of population control was a mistake. You think?
Yeah, I couldn't have thought about this, I don't know, before we released the flare. But she says that this new group of 200 people is going to be for a new civilization, and that is essentially where the book ends.
Yep. And, I guess we'll never know if they lived happily ever after, but it kind of seems like they do.
It kind of seems like they do. Kind of sets it up for happily ever after when you think about it.
So in our new civilization, we were thinking the most fitting top 5 would be top 5 things we hope that they do in this new civilization. What is it going to be? It could be.
Meg, you got to start with number 5.
Number 5, I'm really hoping that a lot of people get married and they have a great time, and more specifically, the whole community learns the Cupid Shuffle.
And more specifically, I hope they have a designated time that they do the Cupid Shuffle every single day. Like the 3 p.m. Cupid Shuffle.
Like in DreamWorks Trolls, where they have to hug every half hour.
Maggie, I've never seen Trolls.
God damn it. Okay. I'll get you or my girlfriend to like it. Whatever.
It's not that I dislike it. I just haven't seen it.
It's okay.
Okay. We'll talk about this. Number 4 is we think, a nice little like farm paradise is great, but we gotta level this up a little bit. We gotta get a transit system because how are you gonna go from place to place?
I know. Hey, good busing, good jobs. And we need to make sure that there's no poverty or class disparity in this new civilization. Yeah. So how do we? Which brings us to honestly number 3. We need some good city planning. You're thinking, oh, you mean like a park or like a good resource center? No. We need a Denny's to be built first, and then we need an amusement park surrounding it.
Yeah. Or you put the Denny's outside the amusement park, so that way it's like you start your morning, you're like, great, 5 a.m., we're getting our Denny's, we're going to the amusement park. Or when you're leaving the amusement park, you're like, we gotta go get ourselves a dinner at Denny's.
Yeah.
It's a win-win. Win-fucking-win.
Win-win.
Number 2, we're really hoping that everybody can finally lose their virginity. The time for life and death is over. It is now time to fall in love and get horny with it. Which would bring us
to number 1, which is prom night. What other place are you going to lose your virginity? I'm kind of hoping Thomas doesn't lose his to Brenda, because it would be like an Aaron Taylor Johnson situation. Like, I feel like Brenda is like at least in her 20s or 30s.
I don't think she's supposed to be. I think she's supposed to be their age, but it's also never told how old she is.
She reads like she's in her 20s. And you know what? I kind of feel like their relationship is the one that TikTok would pick apart. Like, I feel like it's kind of like a groomer situation. But
yikes.
I know.
Yeah, and that's our top 5, which brings us to our final canceled character of the original trilogy. Meggie, who's your canceled character?
Of the whole trilogy?
Oh, no, of this book in the trilogy.
Okay, you know what? My gut is kind of telling me Brenda, just because I feel like she was withholding a lot of information. I mean, there's obvious choices like Ratman I could pick, but I feel
Yeah.
like she kept withholding information, and I never figured it out at the end, which made me want a book after this because I was like, I feel like she's hiding something.
Yeah, I get that. I'm gonna concede to you because I just put down the cranks in general because they were being really mean to Lawrence's van. And I feel like Lawrence probably paid a lot for that van. So I'm gonna concede. I agree. I think Brenda wasn't fleshed out enough to make us really, really trust or like her.
No.
So the fact that she kind of gets off scar free in this, I dislike.
Yeah. And but something we do like is if you follow us online at Meggie_and_Laura on Instagram.
We also love it if you follow us on TikTok and Twitter at Yeah We Read It.
Yep. And then we are also, hey, if you want to send us an email, we get those sometimes at MeggieandLauraPresent@gmail.com.
We love an email.
We love an email. We will be doing The Kill Order and Fever Code next, and we're going to have a few friends on to discuss these with us. So
Yeah, we're extending the love of YA to our friends who love YA and are going to come talk about these books with us. Maggie and I have both started The Kill Order, and I'm interested to talk about it because it is definitely a turn from what this series is. But we'll see you all next Wednesday for that. And make sure you give us 5 stars and rate and review us. That would be nice too.
be great.
Okay, that's it for the episode. We did it, Maggie.
Bye bye.
Hi.